Men is a British horror film written and directed by Alex Garland, whose previous works consist of Ex Machina, Annihilation and 28 Days Later. And Men follows the character of Harper, who's played by Jessie Buckley, as she goes to the British countryside following the death of her ex-husband. To start with, Men is a visual masterpiece and is absolutely stunning to view, making use of its bright colours that I was in complete and utter awe of the whole entire film. And also the sound design was absolutely fantastic and really made me feel like I was in the British countryside. There's a specific scene within the film where our character of Harper is by a railway track, an abandoned railway track, and she just starts to utilise the echo just to keep herself a bit of company, and the use of the sound design where they pick up on that specific cue multiple times during the film's runtime just absolutely blew me away. With the film, from the get-go, something doesn't quite feel right within the countryside. Right from when we're introduced to the character of Jeffrey, who's played by Rory Kinnear, who's the owner of this holiday home that Harper goes to. And right from then, the tension that Garland manages to build perfectly over the first two acts in particular of the film, through what I would say was a good pace. I completely understand why people would say that it was a bit slow, but for me, I'm a fan of slow burns, and to me the pace was absolutely fantastic through its use of the stunning visuals, through its use of the sound design. That tension really does start to build up over time and really makes you feel uneasy, particularly through Rory Kinnear, who shows just how fantastic of an actor he is, because it's not a spoiler, because it's sort of in the trailers. It's not sort of, it is in the trailers, where he plays multiple different characters, and he plays every single man that is within this village, and it really doesn't just feel like an actor who's got a wig on in different roles each time. He really gives each character that we're introduced to his own very unique personality, and the way that he uses each character to communicate with Harper is just absolutely phenomenal, and they each have their own unique relationship with Harper that really, really is played fantastically by Rory Kinnear. Absolutely massive props to him for the performances he put up in that film. Now, that's not to say that Men's a perfect film. It really isn't. For me, Men really does fall short in that third act. It sort of attempts to go full-fledged horror. Me, myself, as you could probably see behind me, I'm a huge horror fan, but I feel that Men would have been a better film overall if it was a touch more subtle in that area. Its overuse on the CGI towards the end of the film is a little bit sort of off-putting, since the rest of the film was so fantastically built. We were really immersed in this world, that when it came to that sort of final bit in the third act, it just kind of felt sort of like taking you out of that experience that you'd already managed to fantastically build over that time. I also feel that the message in the film, the first two acts had me guessing, where is this going? What is going to happen? It was fantastic in them first two acts, but the third act, I felt like, again, it could have been better with a little bit more ambiguity. If it was a little bit more subtle in that message. That's not to say that the message within the film is bad, because it isn't. It just feels a little bit forced down your throat, particularly in that third act. I couldn't help but think that it would have been loads better if it was just a little bit more subtle. The Invisible Man from a few years ago had a very similar message to Men, but it wasn't forced down your throat. It wasn't preachy. It wasn't pretentious. It was there in the background very subtly and played it very well. And I couldn't help but think that Men would have been a better film if it took the same approach as The Invisible Man did with its message. Not to say it needed to be the exact same film. I'm saying if its message was as sort of subtle and a bit more ambiguous like The Invisible Man was, then Men would have been so much better. So much better. So, overall, Men, definitely a film that I would recommend to you to go and watch at least once. It really is. And that way you can make your own mind up on the film. Some of you are going to have completely polar opposite opinions to me. Others might agree with me. Others might completely hate it. I sit somewhere in that middle part purely because of the world that was built, that I was immersed in for them first 2 acts. Just that sort of third act really sort of started to slope off. So I feel that when it does get a release on Blu-ray, I don't think that I'm going to pick it up and give it another watch. And that really is a shame. Purely for the fact of the world that Alex Garland managed to build and really immerse me in throughout them first 2 acts, to sort of ruin the experience in that third act through its message, through, I would say, the overuse of CGI. It's not really overused, it's just sort of thrown in there and sort of takes you out of that experience because it's just not quite up to scratch. It just feels like it doesn't belong in that world and takes you out. And I really think you'll know what I mean if you see it when it comes out third act with the CGI. And I think you'll know what I mean when it comes to the message in the film, which obviously I'm not saying it's a bad message at all. Fantastic message. It just was preachy and pretentious when it really didn't need to be. It could have done it a lot more subtle